It all began on a quiet Tuesday morning in San Tomas. The sky was calm, the streets not yet fully awake. A silver Buick pulled up near the courthouse. From it stepped a woman of quiet authority. Her name was Maite Herrera. Her gray hair, usually tucked neatly in a bun, glimmered under the morning sun. She wore a navy blue suit, sensible heels, and carried a dark red leather briefcase. Her steps were measured, filled with purpose. She looked like someone who knew exactly where she belonged. And she did. For over 2 decades, Maite had served as a federal judge, known for her fairness, brilliance, and integrity. She had changed lives from the bench, not with power, but with justice. But that morning, she made one decision that would change everything. She came without her judge's robe, not out of forgetfulness, but principle. She believed that justice should not rest on appearances, that authority shouldn't come from a garment, but from the person beneath it. Sadly, not everyone shared that belief. As she approached the courthouse entrance, Officer Ruben Calderon, a tall man with an ego larger than his duty, stood guard. He was known for being difficult, especially with people he didn't approve of. Maite stepped in line quietly, waiting her turn. But the moment Ruben saw her, everything changed. He looked her up and down with a sneer. To him, she didn't look like a judge. She looked like someone out of place, a black woman who had wandered into the wrong part of the world. "Step aside, ma'am," he ordered, his tone sharp and dismissive. Maite calmly reached into her briefcase and pulled out her golden judicial ID. She handed it to him with a composed smile, expecting recognition. He didn't even glance at it. Instead, he crumpled it in his fist and shoved it into his pocket like trash. "Where do you think you're going dressed like that?" he said, barely hiding the contempt in his voice. Before she could respond, 2 more officers flanked her. They grabbed her arms and steered her down a side hallway, away from the main entrance, away from the eyes of others. No one spoke up. No one stopped them. Silence can be louder than violence. She was led into a dark room, no windows, a single metal chair in the center. A buzzing sound filled the space, a pair of electric clippers already running, waiting, as if someone had planned this. "Sit down," Ruben ordered. Maite didn't scream. She didn't cry. She looked him in the eye and said, in a calm, unwavering voice, "This is illegal. You're violating federal law." But he only laughed. "To me, you're just another black woman pretending to be important." 2 men entered the room. One looked unsure, eyes darting nervously. The other had a shaved head and a blank stare, like he had lost whatever soul he once had. Together, they held her down. The buzzing grew louder. Strand by strand, Maite's hair fell to the floor. Silvery wisps floated down like feathers. Still, she didn't beg. She didn't plead. She gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was defiance. In that silence, she buried her pride, her hurt, and her humiliation. Half an hour later, the courtroom doors opened. Inside, the crowd quieted. A hush swept through the room like wind before a storm. Every head turned, and there she stood, Judge Maite Herrera, bald, composed, and unshaken. She walked to the bench with dignity that no uniform, no hair, no outward symbol could define. Ruben stood in the corner, pale as a ghost. He recognized her now. Realization crashed down on him like an avalanche. The woman he had humiliated was the judge presiding over the most high-profile case of the year. The courtroom fell silent as the trial began. The case was grim. A 17-year-old boy, unarmed, had been suffocated during a peaceful protest. His father took the stand, hands trembling, voice cracking with grief. "They said he was faking, told me to stop making a scene. But my son, he wasn't breathing anymore." And then came the twist that turned the courtroom into a confessional. A retired court clerk, Julia Reyes stood up from the crowd. Short white hair, thick glasses, tears in her eyes. "I filed complaints against Officer Calderon 12 times, she said. They were all ignored." Another man rose, Mateo Aranda, a former federal officer. His voice shook. "I saw everything that day. I stayed quiet because I was afraid of losing my job." And one by one, people stood. A college student, a war veteran with crutches, a single mother. Each had their own story. Each had faced Calderon's abuse. Each had stayed silent, until now. The defense scrambled. "Your Honor is emotionally compromised," they shouted. "She cannot be objective." Maite stepped down from the bench. The room watched in stunned silence as she walked to the center. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Objectivity," she said calmly, "is not about pretending not to see injustice. It is not about remaining silent while power is abused with impunity. Justice starts not with laws, but with voice." She turned toward the bailiff. "Arrest Officer Ruben Calderon for abuse of authority, assault of a federal official, and violation of civil rights." No applause, no cheers, just silence, the heavy kind that signals the beginning of change. That night, her sister shaved off the remaining strands of Maite's hair at home. But this time, it was not a violation. It was a ritual of healing, a way to say, "They took nothing from me. I am not hiding anymore." The next morning, her image filled the headlines. Judge Herrera, bald, poised, powerful. Not out of revenge, but out of unwavering commitment to justice. 2 weeks later, a teenage girl approached her outside the courthouse. "Since I saw your story," she said shyly, "I stopped hiding my short hair. You showed me I don't have to feel ashamed." Maite smiled and bent slightly to meet her eyes. "Don't ever let anyone tell you what power looks like. It comes from here," she said, placing her hand over her chest. "So now, I ask you, what would you have done if you were her? Would you have broken down or stood tall? Would you have stayed silent or spoken your truth? Let us know in the comments. Was this justice or was it too late? Because real justice doesn't begin in the courtroom. It begins with your voice. And now, it's time to raise it. This story is not just about one woman. It's about the countless voices that have been silenced for far too long. It's about every person who has been judged by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character. It's about the courage it takes to rise, not with anger, but with grace. Judge Maite Herrera showed us that true power doesn't come from uniforms, titles, or appearances. It comes from within, from standing firm when others try to strip you of your identity, your worth, your dignity. Her silence in that dark room wasn't weakness, it was resistance. Her walk into that courtroom wasn't revenge, it was justice. And when she spoke, it wasn't just as a judge, it was as a symbol that injustice, no matter how deeply rooted, can be challenged. A symbol that dignity, even when bruised, never truly breaks. Let this story remind us, justice isn't just about laws. It's about having the courage to speak when it's hardest, to stand when it's painful, to lead even after being brought to your knees, and to never let anyone define your worth. Because real power lives in those who refuse to be silenced.